The variety show featuring So I thought that what we could start with first is going through all of my tomato varieties because tomatoes are my favorite and they're the thing that I'm most excited to share with you guys and probably the thing that I did the most research on for my garden. If you watch my seed starting station video, you saw, I mentioned how I had an issue with blight in the past. So I have moved to a new property, so I'm hoping that that isn't as much of an issue as it was at my old property. But it was something that I paid attention to when I was picking out my seeds. Come here. Do you want to be in my video? Come here. Oh, we can be in the video. So keep in mind that with your heirloom varieties, it's going to be harder to get a disease-resistant strain because most of the disease-resistant strains have come through a lot of genetic engineering and mixing different things together, whereas heirloom varieties are usually older, so they don't have quite as much resistance. But it was something that I tried to look for in my varieties anyway. So with that being said, Remy's here to help. Let's check out all of my tomatoes. Let's do it. Pink tie-dye. So I have here the listing for the pink Berkeley tie-dye slicing tomato off of the Fedco Seeds website. So if you're interested in where I got these from. So why did I choose this tomato? And why has it become my favorite tomato? I'm probably going to continue to grow it every year. Well, the reason why it's my favorite is because it is doing so well. I really haven't had to put a lot of work into these tomatoes other than just, transplanting them up into larger pots here and there. But these tomatoes have done the best. If you can see, it's got a really strong stem already started. I do take all of my tomatoes and put them on the floor once a week and run a fan in front of them just to get them used to being in the wind and everything. So as you can see, it's fairly sturdy already. It's probably been transplanted about 3 times by now, and this is going to be the largest size pot it's going to be in before it goes into the ground. But when it does go into the ground, I'm going to remove these lower branches and I'm going to plant right up to here. So everything from here all the way to the bottom is going to be a really, really strong root system and really just give it the best shot at becoming an even stronger tomato because it's already my strongest. Another thing that I do to maintain these is I pick off these suckers. So I don't know if you can see right here in between these 2 branches, this is a sucker. So this is where a new branch is going to try and come off to create more tomatoes. So this would eventually grow into a shoot, and then that would flower, and it would basically start its own new branch going this way. So the way that I like to grow my tomatoes is I like to post them. So I put a metal post next to them, and I tie them up to it, and then I like to just keep one main stem, and of course branches, because you need to be able to produce. You need to be able to get that energy. But I like to just do the one main stem, tie it up to like a pole, bamboo pole, stake, whatever, and just let it continually grow straight up, and everything will flower off of this main post stem, instead of having several, which kind of just causes it to weigh down and it can't really support itself. So that's something that I like to do. But yeah, go in here and pick out these suckers. Real easy. They come back pretty quick, so I try to check them a couple times a week. Just pull them off with your fingernail. That's gonna make your plant want to keep growing up and create more leaves, create more flowers, things like that. So instead of growing out, it's gonna grow up. That's what we want. Why did I choose this tomato? First of all, it is an indeterminate tomato. All of the tomatoes I'm growing are indeterminate. So if you don't know the difference between an indeterminate tomato and a determinate tomato, an indeterminate tomato is just going to keep growing and growing and growing all through the season and continue to produce until it's too cold and it finally dies. A determinate tomato is typically more of like a bush in structure. and it only produces once. So if you're going for determinate tomatoes, make sure that you're planting in succession so that you don't have all of your tomatoes producing all at the same time, because you're going to be overwhelmed. Even with the indeterminate tomatoes, I still plant in succession too, just so that I can make sure that I'm getting a longer stretched harvest season instead of having everything coming to ripeness all at once. So why did I choose this particular tomato? The seed listing claims that it has early productivity, large size, disease tolerance, and is a beautiful tomato. So it's got kind of like a reddish color on the bottom, and then it's got these stripes going through it that are green, and so that's why I call it pink tie-dye. It's beautiful. I'm really excited for this one. But I definitely have seen that it's looking like it's going to be an early producer for me. I started everything from seed, and you can see some are doing much stronger than others, so that's what I'm basing my decisions off of. But these ones in particular have just been really strong. They've grown really, really strong stems, which is super important, so your plant isn't buckling over. Too leggy is a term that a lot of people use. So number one on your list, if you're gonna order from Fedco or wherever else you can get a hold of these seeds, looks like they're from a Wild Boar Farms in Napa, California, by a breeder named Bradley Gates. So if you're looking for this variety, you can use that information to go ahead and find it, and hopefully you will have as much success as I did. So the 3 tomatoes that you're seeing in front of you right now were all started in late February. I'm in zone 6A, so I was hoping to be able to plant these varieties close to the end of this month in May. So they started from seed, they've gotten all the way to this. They look excellent, healthy. I'm really excited to transplant them outside. And I just know that they're gonna produce really well for me compared to just having to go to a nursery and pick up a smaller, weaker plant that is probably gonna be more expensive than what it cost me to grow these from seed. So these are my favorite tomatoes. Our next variety is the Prudence Purple Slicing Tomato. Well, I chose 2 slicing tomato varieties and 2 cherry tomato varieties. So this was my other slicing tomato, except for the the pink tie-dyes. Another thing that I wanted to mention to you guys about the Fedco Seeds website real quick, something that I really love, they have a real simple 1 through 5 numbering system that they use. And so they'll classify each seed as a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And what those mean are they're telling you, where does that seed come from? Does it come from like a large conglomerate corporation? Does it come from a family-owned farm? Does it come from a Fedco farm? So like for this one, for example, it's coming from number 1, which is a small seed farmers, including Fedco staff, and a number 2, which is seed source, family-owned companies or cooperatives, domestic and foreign. So what I love about this is I can really take my money and I can put it towards the farms that I believe in. There are some things that I had to buy from like larger companies, but a lot of times I was willing to pay a little bit more to know that this was going to a family-owned farm or a Fedco-owned farm, so that I can keep supporting this business that I want to continue to use for many years to come. So things that stood out to me about the listing for this tomato is that it's early, it's a great sandwich tomato. Again, I love tomatoes, I'll just eat them raw, I don't even care. It's very large sized fruit, it's about 1 pound, but very few seeds, a silky texture, rich taste, and it's just beautiful. It's like a pink color, even though it's called purple. You can actually see like underneath, it might be hard to see in the video, but underneath the leaves they are actually purple. They're very beautiful plants. So these have been doing well for me, but not nearly as well as the pink tie-dye. You can see how the stem is just a little bit more leggy. It's not quite as strong, and that might be my fault. I might have transplanted this and not gone deep enough so that I could continue to cover the stem with soil and cause it to produce more roots. So that could be on me. I have so many tomatoes, I can't follow individually which one is which. But you can see this one I just transplanted a little more recently. It's farther down in the actual pot because I'm gonna keep removing these stems and keep moving the soil level up to try and get it to produce a larger root system. Because the more roots you have, the more successful you're gonna be once you transplant. So it's not the best for the slicing tomatoes, but I only have 2 varieties, so it's hard to compare. Time is gonna tell whether or not I'm gonna continue to use these plants, this variety of tomato. So far, I've been moderately happy with it. They're not nearly as strong as my pink tie-dye, but the germination rate is really good. And who knows, they might become a really great producer once we get them outside and just kind of, like for example, this one I will plant probably all the way up to here into the soil to have it have a larger root system. So possibly when we move it, it might be a lot healthier. I'm just real excited to see how this one turns out. And this one is just more of a bit of a maybe whether or not I will grow it again next year. But just drawn to it for some of the features I discussed and just looking for the most beautiful tomato out there, and someday I'm gonna find it. Next, we're gonna be discussing my Esternia cherry tomatoes. So these are my Esternia cherry tomatoes. I'm real excited about these ones. They've been doing super duper well. One thing about these is that I only actually got 10 seeds with the whole pack. So it was kind of just a one and done. Everything was planted at once because I didn't realize I only had 10 seeds until I had already like set everything up. So all of them are the same age and they're all doing extremely well. In fact, when I went to pick them off of the shelf back here, I could tell which ones were the Esternia cherries because they're the tallest and they are beautiful, symmetrical, doing really well. So when these fruit, they're gonna make little cherry tomatoes that are like a bright orange color and very like circular round. Beautiful tomatoes. Something that drew me to them was the color. I've said it before, you know, the first thing you do when you eat is you eat with your eyes. Everything, you know, has to be beautiful and it has to be appetizing. So that's something that I like to do with my produce is find the fun, beautiful things so that people get more excited about eating it. Something about this tomato variety is it is disease resistant to a couple things because it's an F1 hybrid. If you're not sure what that means, it means that if you were to grow one of these tomatoes and take a seed from it and grow another plant, it won't grow true to what this actually is, because this is a combination of 2 different breeds coming together. So that's why they call it an F1. There's your 2 parents and then the progeny is your F1. Just checking back in the notes from my gardening journal, it looks like I bought 10 seeds for this particular variety of the Esternia cherry. It was $3.80 for the 10 seeds. They are organic and they're coming from domestic and foreign corporations, not part of a larger conglomerate. So that's where I chose to put my money towards. But it looks like I planted these on 2/26 of this year, and 9 of the 10 of them came up and are still doing well to this day, if you're wondering what my success rate is with these particular ones. So I wouldn't be surprised if this is a variety that I continue to grow every year, even though you're only getting 10 seeds and it's almost $4. 9 out of 10 seeds coming up and all doing really, really well is a good sign for me. And if they do truly have the large clusters of fruit like it says they're going to, it might be worth that a little bit of extra money to get this one again next year. The black cherry tomato. You can see right here where it says this number 2, family-owned companies or cooperatives, domestic and foreign. But last and probably least, we're going to be talking about my black cherry tomatoes. This is a variety that I probably won't be purchasing again next year unless a huge turnaround happens once I put them in the ground. I had a really hard time germinating these in the same exact setting that all of my other tomatoes were germinated in, so I know it's not the setting, it's not the temperature, everything down here is exactly the same, the medium, and a lot of these did not even grow. Let me check my journal. This is my gardening journal. These were all planted on 2/26 or at least my first round was. I'm not really sure because, again, they haven't done very well, so it's hard for me to tell what was a first round and what was a second round because they're not labeled that way. But for example, on March 15th, I was already transplanting my pink tie-dyes because they had outgrown their container. And 9 out of the 10 of them were being transplanted and doing very well. Whereas only 4 of the black cherry tomatoes had even come up, and they were too small to even transplant at that point. March 22nd, I made a note that 6 of the 10 black cherry seedlings had come up. On March 24th, I only transplanted 3 of them. Because I'm not going to put my time and energy and resources into working on really weak seedlings. So I transplanted 3 of them, and then I was like, okay, let's start over. So on the second round of planting 10 of them, I did have a higher success rate. On April 12th, I made a note that the original black cherries that I had transplanted a little while earlier were still small, not really doing well. The second round of black cherry tomatoes did come up pretty strong, with 8 out of the 10 seedlings being small, and 8 out of 10 being large seedlings, and then 1 smaller seedling. You can just see, if you watch the other varieties, how much smaller these look. These look similar to something, these look similar in size to what I would have purchased from the nursery, so not really a good investment for me at this point. So who knows? Maybe I'll put them in the ground and they'll spring up like weeds and I'll have beautiful black cherry tomatoes. But that's what you get when you take a chance on new varieties. But I kept my log really well, and now I know to purchase a stronger variety like the pink tie-dye or even the Prudence purple, the Esternia cherry. Those are all doing well, and since these were in the same environment, I can pretty definitively say that maybe just for where I am, these aren't going to work for me. If you are wondering how many tomatoes I have and you're thinking, hey, that's a lot. Yeah, there's all these too.